In the last year, I've seen churches use AI to reach thousands of people, but at the same time, I've seen some churches use AI and lose their credibility literally overnight. Because like it or not, AI is changing how churches need to communicate. If you ignore it, you'll get left behind. If you use it wrong, you'll lose trust. But if you use it right, it represents one of the biggest opportunities that we have to reach more people and grow. Now, I wanted to make this video to be something that's helpful to pastors in all walks of ministry. I found that as of right now, pastors fall into one of a few different camps. Some of us are more resistant towards AI, and it's a little bit scary. We don't really want to go there. Others of us have fully embraced it, and we're ready to go in and use AI and can't wait to see what happens. But I think most of us find ourselves somewhere in the middle of those two positions. We're either cautiously optimistic or cautiously pessimistic about AI and its future. But one thing is absolutely certain, that AI is coming whether we like it or not. So to help us navigate that and help you think through how your church uses AI, I wanted to give you a framework about how we're thinking about it here at Reach Right, how I'm thinking about it at my church, and give you 7 rules that'll help you better navigate this season that we find ourselves in. So let me start with the first rule, and that is people over prompts, because AI can draft things, but only you can be the pastor. Really what this rule is all about is keeping your voice the primary one that people hear in your church, and not the voice of some lifeless AI out there. The framework I use is I am the thought leader and AI is my thought partner. Think of it maybe even as your digital Barnabas. It's there to be your assistant and help you along, but it is never there to lead you. You are the pastor. That's an assignment that God has given you, and you cannot delegate that out to AI. Where I see us falling into this temptation of putting prompts over people most is when it comes to communication, and that's really one of the best use cases of AI. But I'm not saying you can't use AI like ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other services out there to help you with your communication. You just can't let it lead your communication. So a lot of this comes down to the way that you're prompting AI. Don't put in prompts like, write my weekly email for me that is encouraging to my church. That just lets AI make all the decisions, and it's not actually your voice. Instead, what if you talked with AI back and forth? One of the tricks I like to use is having AI ask me questions and be kind of an interviewer to help pull out of me some of the themes that I want to talk about. So start with maybe a prompt like, I want to write an email to my church this week to encourage them. Can you interview me by asking me one question at a time to help pull out some ideas of things that I'm thinking about, or ideas that might help my church this week, and then help me draft an email based on some of those responses that I give you. You see, in that way, AI can serve you and help pull out something that is organically in you and help put it to paper. Of course, from there, you need to make sure that you're reviewing the final draft. You can't just hit send on something that AI writes, but I think that gets you half the way there. And I think over time, you'll really find a way to make it feel like it's your voice, and it actually isn't just a bot talking to people, but it's actually you. And once you have your voice dialed in, the next guardrail is to make sure you're protecting your people, which leads us to rule 2, which is always protect privacy. And if you want a simple way to think about this, here's kind of a hard and fast rule. Never paste your people into your prompts. There's lots of ways you might be tempted to do this, like maybe pasting in giving records and seeing if you can pull out any interesting analysis from that, or maybe pasting notes from a counseling session you've done into AI and helping you come up with talking points or homework assignments. Now, all of those can be good use cases, but you just need to make sure that you are anonymizing the people that you're putting into there. So here's the way I like to think about it. If I wouldn't give information to a third-party vendor or someone else at our church, I wouldn't put it into AI, because it's just too risky to give our people's information away. So for me, I would still use some of those same prompts. I have loaded in some of our giving information at my church into ChatGPT, and I've had it do analysis, but I just remove the entire column where it says a person's name. So all we have is just their giving records, and each person is assigned a number. I can then take that information and then cross-reference it on the back end and learn some things about the information it's giving me, but I never paste anybody's identifying information directly into AI. And I don't think you should either. And now that we've covered privacy, let's talk for a second about honesty when it comes to AI. And that brings us to our third rule, is always practice transparency with AI. Now, I think if you followed our first rule and it's people over prompts and AI is just an assistant and you are the leader, you don't need to always acknowledge every single time that you used AI and every prompt you used in every situation. But if you do let it go on some of the creative side of things, I think just a simple mentioning that this was AI that helped you with this, that would be appropriate. When it comes to things like graphics, it might make sense to put a little mark on the bottom that says AI generated or something, especially if it's something that's representing your church. So I probably wouldn't acknowledge it on every piece of creative we do as a church, but if I ever have someone that's not a real person or it's an AI image that I'm using on our church site or on a social media post, you want to make sure you acknowledge that and don't mislead people into thinking that your church is something that you're not. So obviously honesty really matters, but it won't matter if what you're saying just is completely untrue. And that brings us to rule number 4, is verify everything. As church leaders, we trust the Bible, we don't trust bots. So it is so important that everything that comes through AI is verified by multiple sources. AI has this tendency to what's called hallucinate. Sometimes it'll just make up facts that totally don't exist and no one's ever said them before, or give you ideas, or sometimes I've even seen it come up with scriptures that are just pulled out of thin air. Now that's actually becoming more rare, and with the release of ChatGPT 5, they're claiming that their hallucination rate is under 1% at this point, but still, that means that 99 things you'll say are true and 1% of things are false. Now, you're going to lose trust pretty quick with those ratios. So what the rule is you need to make sure that everything you see in AI, make sure you're verifying it. If you're using scripture in a communication that you're sending out to your church, check and actually read the scripture for yourself and make sure that it got it right. Even if it changed a little word, as we know, that can make a huge difference in the actual meaning of what God is saying. So you want to verify that, and especially with statistics. I think that's the place where it's most likely to mess up and do some hallucination. So make sure you're doing that every single time you put in any prompt. Make sure you verify. So once you've verified it, and even if you've confirmed that the content is 100% correct, your images can still really hurt your trust as well. And that brings us to our next rule. You have to use images honestly. I want to talk about using images of our own people and how we should do that appropriately when it comes to AI. I have a hard and fast rule, and maybe this could change in the future. I'm not totally sure where things shake out, but I don't ever have AI make people in my church do things that they didn't actually do. Again, there's a great use case for that because we all need some of that B-roll footage. But without permission, I just think it's crossing the lines. Also, again, be really careful with the stock images that you're using. Even if it's someone you don't know or you have license to use someone's photo in an AI generation, well, still be careful because we never want to communicate something about our church that isn't actually real. That's our main goal, is to communicate who we really are, and that's the core of communication. I've been in church communications for nearly 20 years, and I can promise you that people value authenticity over someone that just looks cool or some kind of slick marketing style. So be honest when it comes to your images, always disclose, always get permission. And with those guardrails in place, then you can really get into our next rule, which is use AI to multiply ministry. That's the main use case for us. I truly believe that one of the best uses of AI today is to buy back some of that time that pastors spend doing the menial tasks that are related to ministry in order to have them focus more fully on being with people and doing the work of the ministry. Much like any other job, pastoring involves lots of paperwork. There's board meetings and financial reports and social media management and sermon uploading and all the things that it takes to run the day-to-day operations at a church. These are great use cases for AI. I want to give you a few of them that I think if you really nail them, they'll give you more time to focus on being with people, praying, sermon prep, the things that only you can do. And this is really where AI shines. So one of the ones that I love right now is just turning your sermon sermons into more bite-sized clips for people. There are great AI tools. Some of them are secular like Opus Clip, and some are made by Christians and for churches like Sermon Shots. Both of them are really great, but they are simple tools that in about 15 minutes, they can take an entire sermon and pull from it some of the most interesting clips that would do well on social media platforms. Now, I will say they don't do the best job. They're probably not as good as someone professionally doing it, but let's face it, that takes a lot of time and money to make that happen. I think some of these tools are about 80% there, and in my view, for a lot of churches, 80% is good enough. We can run and we don't need to be paralyzed by making sure everything is fully perfect. So that's an easy use case and an easy win that probably saves an average church 3 or 4 hours a week of not doing that sermon editing and getting that great content onto social platforms. And really the list is totally endless. I'm sure that there's so many use cases that we haven't even thought of just yet. If you have a use case that you're using AI for to multiply your ministry, let us know down in the comments below. Now I will say this, more output is great, but it only really matters if it helps move the needle on ministry in your church, which brings us to our last rule, which is make sure you measure the impact. Said another way, you need to track the fruit, not just the activity. So really the big idea here for us as church leaders is we need to be measuring the actual ministry impact, not just the amount of time saved, because time saved for more leisure isn't really what this is all about. It's about so we can have more impact on the people that we serve, on our communities, and spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. Let's say, for instance, you implemented one of those sermon clip ideas I was talking about in the previous rule. Well, you need to actually measure, is this getting us results? Take a look at your YouTube Shorts performance or your Instagram Reels performance, and are we seeing improvement by uploading these videos on a regular basis? If so, well, that's a use case that shows that we have a win when it comes to our AI. But again, if we're being honest, really just views on Instagram isn't what most churches are most concerned with. Is it turning into actual people showing up on Sunday morning, or us making a bigger impact in our community? Are people locally seeing our clips, or are we spending more time reaching people overseas? Some of these kinds of things are things you really have to measure. And in fact, you can use AI to do some of that kind of measurement. There's no limit to the number of things you can count in your church, but we have a spreadsheet that we keep that we manage all that information. And once a month or so before our church council meeting, I'll load that into AI and have it pull out any interesting insights or trends, or maybe even making charts to help us visualize the trajectory of some of those things. If we see things going up and to the right, well, that's a good sign, but even more helpful is if I see something start to take a turn down and maybe I hadn't been aware of it, AI can help me see some of those things so we can make the necessary course correction. So I love using AI, and one of its best uses is in helping you measure. So those are the 7 rules that I live by. Let me give you a speed recap. It's people, privacy, transparency, verify, honest images, multiply, and measure your impact. That's what it all boils down to. If this has been helpful to you, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit that subscribe button down below. And maybe this will be helpful to you too. I went ahead and made a document that I'm willing to share with anybody who wants it. I'll leave a link to it down in the description. You see, for my church, I felt like I needed something to give my team to make sure we had these rules in writing somewhere and made sure we actually lived by it. So totally free. There's a link. It's just a Google Doc down in the description there. Hint, I used AI to help me make it. But I really think it's been helpful for my team. I hope it'll be helpful for yours as well. And while I didn't spend a lot of time in this video breaking down how I use AI to help me with creative things, specifically like sermon writing, I did make a whole video about that, about how I use AI to write sermons in an ethical way. I think that's the next video that you should watch.